back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I am here today to do my wrap up for the month of June. I can't believe it, we are officially halfway through the year, or over halfway because it's now July. And I'm moving this month, which is very exciting. So lots has been going on. I haven't read quite as many books as normal, but the ones I did read I mostly enjoyed, so that's really good. And I'm just going to tell you from my least favourite to my favourite and tell you a little bit about each, but I will be doing reviews of pretty much all of these, so if they're not already up you will see them fairly soon. I had a DNF for this month, so I DNF'd The Grey House, which is a book that I've been trying to read since last year. And I say trying to read because I was definitely going quite slow with this. It's a very big chunky book and I was audiobooking and reading it in various different parts, and it's just too weird. I just decided, you know what, I'm getting through this at such a slow pace, it's kind of becoming too much of a chore for me now. There is beautiful writing, there are interesting, kind of weird, wacky, bizarre ideas in this. It's set in this school, children with disabilities end up, and they're kind of abandoned and forgotten from the rest of the world, and it's their story of the world that they create within this house, and the house itself which has a soul of its own. And it sounds, when I say it like that, really good, and bits of it were, but on the whole it really didn't work for me. I don't know exactly what it was, I can't really pin it down, but I just think it was too weird and I personally just fell out of love with it and ended up DNFing it. So that was that. I have a book and then also a novella which are in the same series, so I'm going to do these two together even though I rated them quite differently. So the novel is called The Magpie Lords and this is by KJ Charles. I really wanted to like this because I had heard lots of good things about this author and I'd met her previously, but unfortunately it just didn't really work that well for me. It's about this lord. He and his family have owned this great big house for a long time and he seems to be going through some weird stuff where he keeps trying to kill himself and he doesn't really know he's doing it. So he calls in someone else who is kind of like a practitioner of magic who can hopefully help him, and then the new person proceeds to help him with this problem and also forms a romantic relationship. So there is a gay relationship at the centre of this series, which is why I wanted to read it. And I got this on audio and the audiobook narrator was great, but I just didn't like this very much. I don't know if it was because I wasn't in the mood, but it seemed quite light-hearted and fun and it seemed like the sort of thing I would be in the mood for. Sadly, it just kind of wasn't. So the story I gave like 2 stars, it was okay, but that's all it really was. It wasn't my favourite thing and I just didn't think I would like it that much. But at the end of the audiobook there was a small novella which is called Interlude with Tattoos, and this is set after the first book, so it continues the story a little tiny bit. It's very, very short, but I think this was leagues better than the novel. Maybe it falls into the trap of the novel being overly done for what it's trying to tell and overly long and overly sort of, I don't know, I felt like there was too much going on in the novel and it never really settled into character development, whereas the novella really does go into a tiny bit of character development that is so vitally missing from the novel that I really enjoyed the novella. So it's put me in a weird headspace about this series. I don't know if I like it or not. I gave the novella 4 stars, but I gave the book 2. So, I don't know. Should I carry on with this series? I'd love to know what you guys think if you have read it, because I'm just a bit baffled by how different I rated them and the fact that I rated the novella, which is tiny, much higher than the novel. Is that a good thing? Probably not. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Do let me know if you've read the series. Next up, I read Only Human, which is the newest and I think the final one in the Themis files, and this one is one that I audiobooked. I recommend the audiobooks of this series a lot higher than I recommend the books because they are acted by different people and that really worked for me personally. I think this was a lot of fun. It definitely explores some of the ideas that were hinted at about the alien races in the previous 2 books, and we go into a lot more detail about the culture of aliens and how aliens and humans might interact and the way that people can be so vastly different and yet they can settle into completely different lifestyles if given enough time and understanding. And I think there were some really interesting ideas discussed within this book and some very fun characters and moments where we got to kind of really develop some of our characters.
But with that being said, I don't think it was as strong as the second one in my opinion, which was my favourite in the series. I feel like that one just had a bit more going for it, a bit more of a meaty plotline, and this one was a little bit overly political and quite over the top at times, which is fine, it's a sci-fi, and there's big epic robots that people ride around in, so I guess it can be over the top, but still, I kind of thought it was a little bit too far in that direction for me, so I gave that one a 3 stars. Another 2 that I gave just over 3 stars, so these got 3.5, was Almost Love, which is by Louise O'Neill. This one is her first adult novel, I believe. All her others have been YA up till now, and I've read a couple of her books. I really enjoyed both of those, so I was really hopeful about enjoying this, and I picked this one up on audio, and I did enjoy it because maybe enjoy is not the best word. I liked reading it, but I found it a very difficult read because it's about a relationship with a man who is keeping the woman's secret. He has an ex-wife who he's still fawning over, and yet he is leading this woman on in this kind of illicit affair, and she is just not really understanding that it's never going to become anything more. And we're following her point of view as it all unfolds, and it's quite horrible to see such a relationship. It's very toxic. She gets into some pretty bad lack of relationships with her family and friends because of it, and she ends up doing some silly things and just generally not really living her life to the fullest because she is so obsessed with this man. And for that reason, it's icky, it's not my favourite thing to read, but it's also fascinating and it's definitely people's reality. So in that regard, it does a great job, and yet I didn't find it a pleasurable reading experience. So I gave it a 3.5. The other one I gave a 3.5 to was The Heresy Within, which is by Rob J. Hayes. This one was a fun story, and it's definitely like interesting to go back into Rob J. Hayes' previous works. This is actually set in the same world as his pirate series, which I really enjoyed, yet this one is set before, and we follow a group of different characters, all from kind of different walks of life. Many of them are sort of involved in witch hunting, or they are traders, or people who are for hire, like mercenaries, and all of them kind of coexist in this world, and they end up working together on a big scale job to find out the heresy within this sort of witch hunter order. And it was lots of fun. There were some great character moments, and it definitely has potential, but I feel like it was first book syndrome. That's all it was. It was less developed than I would have liked, but definitely has potential. So 3.5 stars for that one as well, and I will probably continue the series and let you know a bit more about it once I've read the next few, because I think there are 3 in this series right now, so I'd like to read them and then maybe do a series review. Let me know if you're interested in that. And then next up I have 2 4-star books that I really enjoyed. So the first of those is Sweet Black Waves, and this is by Christina Perez. I was luckily given this quite a while back, but I got around to it very recently when it was released, and I really enjoyed this. I was surprised actually, because it's a YA and it's based on a Celtic kind of mythology all about star-crossed lovers and kind of the inspiration for Shakespeare. It's based on that same tale. I didn't know that tale, and I also didn't know a lot of what was going to happen about Tristan and Iseult, I think her name is. I forget how you say it. But this is a retelling, and it's told from the point of view of Essie's friend, and we see her kind of falling in love with this stranger from abroad and basically trying to hide this from the people of her kingdom, whilst also being firm friends with her cousin and being almost sister-like in their devotion for one another. The relationships of friendship were a big part of why I loved this, and I definitely feel like that made it a much stronger book than I was expecting. And I do think that there are some shock factor moments as well in this, so it was really enjoyable, and I definitely was pleasantly surprised and will probably pick up the next book in the series. And then another one that I gave 4 stars to is It Takes a Thief. I think there will be more in this series, but this is the most recent one that was released, and I really enjoyed this. It again follows Isabelle and Jacques, and they are a kind of thieving duo, also a couple who do all sorts of heists and adventures together, and in this one they get involved in a heist of epic proportions where they have to bring in a whole other crew to try and steal this thing and hopefully also save an empire that is on the brink at the same time. It's really fun. It's definitely light-hearted fantasy, exactly the kind of sort of sword and sorcery humour that I really enjoy, and I definitely recommend this one to anyone who wants sort of a fun read. And finally, the last one that I got to in the month of June is On the Shoulders of Titans, and this one is the second one in the Arcane Ascension series. I absolutely loved the first one, and I've done a full review of that when I read it back for SBFBO last year, and I really was excited for the sequel, and I'm very glad that the sequel is very fun. I really enjoyed it. I definitely think the world is coming together more fully. We're learning a lot more about the magic and the characters in this one, and there's just a lot of potential with this. It could go for a long time. I feel like this series could be big and epic, and I really loved it. I gave this a really solid 4 out of 5 stars and would thoroughly recommend the series. I fully intend to continue on with it when more are released, but yeah, this one was also really great. So that is everything I got to in the month of June. I have read a couple things in July already, but I will save them for my July wrap up, so look out for that. And I would love to hear in the comments what you've been reading, what you've enjoyed. Do let me know. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.